What's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is Constant Sports. I am your host, Constance. Now, another week has passed. We've had some crazy good games. The top 25. I want to say the top 25. I know usually I talk about the top 10, but the top 25 has had a lot of shaking and a lot of moving, and I'm here for it. Okay, we have a lot of good teams this year, and they are playing these teams are playing like it's January and they're trying to get to the end of March, and I'm 100% here for it. So, welcome back to the channel. This is Constant Sports. I am your host, Constance. Let's get into it. So, top 10, we had one in, one out. With that being Baylor, they came on up in there and slid right into spot number 10. And Virginia Tech, after that loss to LSU, have found themselves out of the top 10 down to number 15. Even with the moves of one team out, one team in, the top 10 have roughly stayed the same. There have obviously been some moves within the top 10. You had a couple teams move up higher, and then you had, I would say, one team moved down, which that being Stanford, after their loss to Gonzaga. They moved from being the number 3 team down to the number 9 team. Then you have Texas, who was the number 10. Boom, is now the number 5 team. And NC State has definitely moved up to the number 3 team in the country right now and playing like it. But I want to talk about what's happening on the outside of the top 10 because there's some battling going on outside of the top 10 that I feel like all of the teams in the top 10 should definitely be scared of a lot of these teams that's 11. I would say 11 to, I would say the 11 to 14. Those are the teams that definitely looking for. Number 11 team is Utah. Then you got Ohio State. Then we have Kansas State. And then we have Notre Dame. Those teams are killing it. All those teams have only lost one game, and they lost games to very good teams. So they wasn't losing by these unranked teams who just had a good day. Like they've been battling this whole season, and they're slowly creeping up within the standards. So as long as the top 10 teams keep winning, which I foresee them doing so, those teams are going to be right there on the outlines, but they're definitely waiting. They're ready. They're hungry. And anyone in the top 10 who thinking they're going to go up against numbers 11 through 14 and it's going to be an easy day, they got another thing coming. But we did have some really good games this past week with South Carolina going pretty much within the Carolinas and playing Duke, and they played NC State, North Carolina, not NC State. Two good games, battling games. I think South Carolina won both of those games. I think under 15 points, which is a lot for most people, but South Carolina's been killing people by 30, 20 plus points. So to see them going in games and actually having to battle and having to show different strategies than what they've had to do this whole season is really good, because then you really get to see what South Carolina's about. I know you can say, well, they're the number 1 team in the country. They're 7-0. Yes, they are the number 1 team in the country. They are 7-0. But you play differently against your opponents, which we all know, and obviously you don't want to do that. But we know that these teams do it, college does it, professional do it. Depending on who you play, depends on your level of play. So, obviously, being within the Carolinas, these teams are going to battle each other. Like this is their home. This is what they're fighting for, and these teams gave us some amazing, amazing games. The game that I am really looking forward to is we have UCLA and USC will be playing. It's still a few weeks from now, but that is the game that I definitely have circled on my calendar because USC has been balling. Juju Watkins has been balling. Like 5 30-point games, and they played 7. Like, that's crazy. But I want to see them play a team that's been battle tested like UCLA. I want to see them play a top team. And USC is still young, so I'm not saying that, oh, to prove themselves, they have to play a top 10 team. That's not what I'm saying. Any team in the top 25 that can battle them and make them switch up their game, kind of like what I was saying with South Carolina, because then you get to see what they're really working with. You get to see how Juju Watkins plays against different strategies, against different defenses, against top defenses. So I can't wait for that game to come around. Gonzaga made its way into the top 25 after taking down Stanford, which they are number 23. And so they're battling and fighting. I mean, Gonzaga is 8-2, so they're not a bad team, right? Stanford didn't lose to a horrible team. They played a really good game. Gonzaga played a good game against Stanford. They were disciplined, they were well coached, and they played their game. A lot of times when teams who aren't ranked as high as another team, they try to play at that team's level, fast paced. If those teams like to play fast paced, they like to do things that they think are going to help them win, which I understand. But at the time, Gonzaga was 7-2. They were playing, and it was 7-2 playing their game. So when they went into playing Stanford, they continued to play their game, and that's what helped them prevail. We have UConn that's now sitting at number 17, which we haven't seen UConn ranked this low, and I think they're saying in like 30 years or so, which I know it's a change, right? It's a change for us to see UConn ranked number 17. Tennessee isn't even in the top 25 anymore. Like, that's new for the women's basketball. But it's not a bad thing. That means that these other schools they're getting better recruiting now. So the wealth is spread out more now. So all of these different teams are getting good players. Top 5 players coming out of high school, top 10 players. And these teams and these coaches are coaching these young women up, and they're playing. They're giving it their all every single day, and that's what you want to see. We're starting to see a well-rounded women's basketball game. And I mean, we're starting to see it in other places too, men's as well. But to see it in the women's game is great because it makes every game more and more interesting, right? So usually when UConn was on top, you saw them go up against somebody, we knew they were going to destroy them, right? They're just going to destroy them. But now with these teams so evenly matched out, even the number 1 team in South Carolina, they're not going to go in there and beat every team by 30 points, right? I mean, their last 2 games proved it. All of these teams are becoming evenly matched in certain ways. It just depends on how they're coached and the schemes that they're in. And this season is working up to be, I would say, one of the best seasons. With all of the moves and the level of play from these young women, I haven't seen it in a long time. You usually have like that one player that's really sticking out, but I think this year we have so many that the one player that is sticking out that's being talked about is just playing at a phenomenal level that obviously we're going to talk about him. But I feel like there's so many players that are playing at that next level that it's just going to make this season and our journey to March even much more exciting. And I hope you guys stay around and watch it. Make sure you're watching it with me. I think I'm going to close out the video with Princeton obviously made their way into the top 25, but then found themselves out right at the end. But Washington State, Florida, Marquette, and Louisville are your 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 team. Those are teams that not a lot of people here get talked about a lot, and I feel like they might be some of the most dangerous teams early on because they're going to give some of these big teams some losses, and I hope they're ready for it. So thanks for watching this video. Again, this is Constant Sports. I'm your host, Constance. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe. Peace, love, happiness.